Hello beginners, I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Today I want to do a little bit of rhythm review, and I want to show you an illustration that I think may help you understand rhythm just a little bit better. But let's start out. Again, this is some review, remembering what the definition of music is. So the definition of music that I like to use in my class is organized sound through time. Okay, it's very important to realize that music is not just a bunch of sounds thrown together. It's very organized, it's methodical, and there are a lot of rules that we have to follow so that way we can read music correctly and effectively. So let's look at our little sheet here for rhythm review. Please remember that we measure music using beats, okay? And the steady beat is like the heartbeat of the music. It's the beat that keeps the entire piece together and in time. It also helps us as musicians when we're playing together to be playing together in time as well, okay? In the steady beat, you can clap the beat, you can feel it internally, you can snap it. For this video, I'm actually gonna snap, okay? So this is the beat. And you can count beats. Ready, count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I just counted 8 beats. So please understand that when we measure music, we are measuring beats through time, okay? There are some notes that take up more beats than others, and we're going to get into that. Some notes take up many beats, some notes do not. Some notes only take up a fraction of the beat, okay? And we have to learn how to identify notes and how many beats each one of them gets. So let's start out by learning some basics here. So we organize music using measures, which are small units of music. So when you look at a piece of music, okay, and I've actually got one right here that I'm using for advanced band, okay, and this is some music that we're learning in advanced band. You're gonna see that there are bar lines, okay, and then you have measures, okay, and it's the space in between the bar lines. So for example, that is one measure, okay? Going back to our notes, I have 5 measures written out, okay? And the measures are separated by bar lines, and so the measures are the spaces in between. So you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? Now, we also have something called the time signature. And the time signature, and this is an example of one right here, okay, tells us how many beats are in each measure, okay? Now there are many different time signatures, but the first time signature that we learn in beginning band is 4/4, okay? It's got a number 4 on top of another number 4, okay? And I'm gonna darken this so you can hopefully see it just a little bit better, okay? So we have 2 4s on top of each other, and that's called 4/4. Okay, and that means that we have 4 beats in each measure. Okay, so I even counted out some beats under here. 1, let's go ahead and count it. Ready, count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so each measure gets 4 beats. Now, I want to show you an illustration that I hope will help you to remember how many beats each note gets, okay? But please understand that this illustration only works in 4/4 time. Later on, when we start learning other time signatures, you'll find that this illustration that I'm about to show you no longer fits those rules, okay? So don't let that confuse you later on down the road. But for right now, let's look at it in 4/4, okay? So, we have, see, I may actually need to take a break and draw some music, but let's go up here first. Okay, so we're gonna look at the different types of notes. The first type of note that we learned is just an open circle, okay? And if it's in the space, it could look like this, or if it's on a line in the staff, it could look like this. It could have a line in between it. An example of this in music is this right here. Okay, so this is an example of one. This is called a whole note. Okay, a whole note. And there's actually two ways you can remember this one. The first one is that it looks like a hole. Haha, knee slapper, okay? So a whole note looks like a hole. A whole note gets 4 beats. Okay? Now, something else that you can know is that a whole note, we're going to draw a mini staff right here. We have some measures. Okay, we've got 3 measures, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, a whole note, because it has 4 beats, and because there's only 4 beats per measure, a whole note takes up an entire measure. Okay, so because there's 4 beats included in here, there is no room for anything else. So a whole note, therefore, takes up a whole measure. Okay? Now, the next type of note that we're going to look at, it can either look like this, or it can look like this, but it is shown by an open circle with a stem. Okay, and if you look at our music, you can see it here in the music. Okay, here's one, and here's a second, okay? And those are called half notes. And a half note only gets 2 beats, okay? So a whole note got 4 beats, a half note gets 2 beats, okay? So we're gonna come back up here to our music illustration. So because in 4/4, we get 4 beats per measure, and a half note gets 2 beats, so 1 and 2, and then another half note gets 2 beats, 3 and 4, okay? Then we can see that a half note takes up half a measure, okay? So a whole note takes up a whole measure, and a half note only takes up half of a measure. That is, again, because you have 4 beats per measure, okay, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now let's look at another one. The next note that we talked about is called a quarter note. And a quarter note, okay, is a closed circle with a stem. It's called a quarter note. And a quarter note only gets 1 beat. Okay? Quarter note gets 1 beat. Now, think to yourself, if a whole note gets a whole measure and a half note gets half of a measure, and so therefore you need 2 half notes to fill up a measure, how many quarter notes do you think it's going to take to fill up 1 measure? Think to yourself. Have your answer in your head. Okay, and now let's see if you were correct. So, if a 1 quarter note gets 1 beat, and you want to fill up a measure of quarter notes, then you can fill up that measure with 4 quarter notes. Okay, so that means that a quarter note takes up a quarter of a measure, or 1/4, okay? So a quarter note, I don't know if you guys, I think you guys are learning fractions right now with Miss Harbin. A quarter note takes up 1/4 of a measure, okay? You can also explain that as saying 1/4 of a measure, okay? So that can hopefully help you remember. Now, the next one that we're gonna look at, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not in our last video, so if not, then this might be new information for you. But we have something called an 8th note, okay? And oftentimes you see 2 8th notes paired together, okay? So that's what they look like if they're 2 together. You may also see an 8th note by itself, which looks like this, okay? And the way that you would know if it's an 8th note is because it has a closed circle, a stem, and a flag. Okay, so it has 1 flag right here. Okay, and 2 8th notes, if you have 2 of them together, then you simply kind of attach the 2 notes flags, and here's your flag right here. Okay, now, 1/8 note gets half of a beat. Okay, so it only gets a half of the beat. So if you have 2 8th notes paired together, you have 1/2 plus 1/2, which equals a whole, okay? And the way that you would count this, you would have a 1 right here, or whatever number of the beat you're on, and then for the second eighth note, you would use the syllable and, okay? So, and that's called an eighth note. So those are eighth notes, okay? Now, how many eighth notes do you think it takes up to fill a measure? Hopefully you guessed it right. It takes 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill up our measure with 8 eighth notes. And I'm going to do 4 pairs. Okay, so that way you can see all parts. Okay, so we have 4 sets of eighth notes in eighth notes. And like I said, the way we would count it, we would say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? And the beat doesn't change. Please remember that the beat stays the same. So for a quarter note, let's compare quarter notes and eighth notes for a second. So if you were to look at this measure right here, we're starting here, okay? You see 1 sound per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 da. But with eighth notes, you see 2 sounds per beat. Okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and da, 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 da. Okay? So, don't let that confuse you, but the beat does not change. So, please remember, a whole note has 4 beats, so therefore it takes up the whole measure. A half note has 2 beats, so therefore it takes up half the measure. A quarter note has 1 beat, so therefore it takes up 1/4 or 1/4 of a measure. And an eighth note takes up 1/8 of a measure, okay? Otherwise known, you need 8 of them to fill it up, okay? So let's go on ahead. I want you guys to hear what it sounds like. I really wish I had my instrument here at home with me, but we're just going to sing using the word da. So go on ahead and say the word da to yourself in your bedroom or kitchen or wherever it is that you're listening to this video. Okay, so here's the beat, and we're gonna count. 1, 2, ready, and da, 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 da. Okay, so that is what those 4 sounds of music sound like. So now let's count. And I'm going to try and keep the beat with my pencil, or I don't know. I wish I had a third hand to help me out here. But if we were to count this, okay, so I just sang it. Now let's count it. Ready, count. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, and the reason that we held out the number 1 here, and then the number 3 here is because this is one continuous sound. So if we're ever counting and something has one continuous sound, then you use whatever syllable is labeled first. Okay, so I hope that this maybe helps kind of connect some dots for you, help some light bulbs go off. So if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. I hope, again, that this helped, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.